Welcome to week one of a brand new three-part series that we're calling On Your Mark. That it is time to do something. It's time for us to begin to run our race. So we're gonna be in Hebrews 12 for our theme verse, and we're gonna look at some things that Jesus taught about how we just run our race well. You know, when you're getting ready to run a race, maybe let's use a sprint, for instance, that you're gonna get down in the what? You're gonna get down in the, come on, Winter Spring, somebody at Sanford or Oviedo help me out. You're gonna get down in your stance could work. Your starting blocks is what I'm looking for. Sorry, didn't really give you enough information. Your starting blocks, and you're down on all fours. I would do that, but this jacket and pants are way too tight. And so I can't get down there, but you can pretend what that would look like. And when they say on your mark, get set, go, you run the race. For far too many of us as Christians, and people that even go to church, or maybe you don't profess Jesus as Lord, you feel like sometimes you are stuck in the starting blocks. And I want to give you a verse today in Hebrews 12, verse 1. It says this, it talks about it, starting in verse 1, it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us, everybody say it together, let us, that was 7 of you. All of us together, let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. I want to give you the spoiler alert for this series. My goal is that we at Action Church, that we join the race over the next 3 weeks. That over the next 3 weeks, we begin to run the race, that we're not stuck in the starting blocks, but we're running the race that God has for us, that we throw off the sin and we throw off the clutter and the things that would keep us weighted down, and we run the race. Too many of us are stuck. We're stuck in the starting blocks of life. We have the information, we have the Bible knowledge, we even have the inspiration, we have moments with God, and we have the want to, and we have the information, and we have the desire, but for whatever reason, when I say on your mark, get set, go, you just can't get out of the gates. We're stuck. I want to share a story with you about my little boys, and I shared it a couple of years ago. And you just need to know, if you're new here, about every 3 years, you're gonna hear the same stories, because one, I'm only one man, and how many stories do you have? You know what I mean? So just get used to it. They're hilarious. And don't look at me all judgmental. You watch the same shows over and over again. You laugh at The Office and Friends and all your amazing shows. Well, now you're gonna laugh at your amazing pastor tell the same story. Again, it's a good one. A few years ago, I was working out, and Bentley was 3 years old. He's 6 now, and he was at the stage where he always loved to do what Daddy does. Every time I would do something, he would do something. If I drank a certain way, ate a certain way, Bentley was always there to mimic me. And we need to be careful as parents that we're doing the right things, because our kids are looking up to us. Well, I was working out, and this is before I had met Pastor Jay and found CrossFit F3, shameless plug for CrossFit F3 right there on 419 if you're looking for a great gym. And I wasn't doing CrossFit, but I was doing P90X. You might remember P90X, Tony Horton, just keep pressing play. And I was like, man, if I can look like that guy who was 50 plus at the time, I was in my mid-20s, I was like, this works. And so I'm working out with Tony, and it's on bicep and tricep day. So I'm just banging out some curls, hammer curl, and some 50s. Nobody believes that. I was doing work. You can't tell, this jacket looks tight. There's some guns under here. I have my concealed carry permit. You know what I mean? They are in here, they're concealed. And okay, they weren't 50s, they were 30s. But they were a blur. High rep, low weight, tone the body. You know what I mean? I was going for it. Okay, you're right. They were 10s and they were purple, and Stephanie and I shared them. But that's not the point. So I laid them down, and I go get some water and pressed pause because Tony told me that I could. And so I go in there in the kitchen, and I see Bentley, and Bentley has followed his daddy into the living room. He'd been watching me, and he begins to try and pick up the weights. And they were 30s. He's trying to pick them up, and he gets them, and his legs lift and his butt lifts, but the weights don't move. And he just begins getting kind of strained. I'm like, slow down, son, you're gonna get a hernia. Calm down. His veins popping out of his neck. His eyes are kind of bugging out of his head. And he's like, Daddy, these weights, they're stuck. Stuck. Sequel to this is just last week in the garage, I was working out, and Kingston and Bentley were riding their bikes, and Kingston walks in. He's 3 now, and I was doing some curls again, and Kingston walks in, and he tries to pick up the weights. 2 seconds, he picks them up. He goes, "Daddy, these weights too heavy." That's what Pastor Jay and Pastor Kenneth and Pastor Tyler say every time we work out. You're welcome. Here's what I want to tell you. Some of us are stuck because we're straining trying to pick up something. We're trying to do the right things in our marriage, and we're trying to do the right things financially, and we're trying to do the right things, but we are trying to do it, and we're leaving God out of it, saying, I want to run this race. I am stuck because you're trying to do something that you were never meant to do. Others of us are like Kingston. We try it one time, we try the church thing, we try this or we try that, and we say, no, that's too heavy, I'm out. And either way, we're stuck at the beginning of the race. We never get off the blocks because we're trying to do the wrong thing, or we're just not trying at all. And what I want to talk about today is, how do we get unstuck? How do we get to the point where we let us run the race that God has for us? Here's the either or. I think you can be stuck or you can be surrendered. That's what I want to talk about today. Are we living a surrendered life? The book of Romans says if we will confess with our mouth and believe in our heart that he is the Lord, that means control. That means our king. That means our ruler. That means the one in authority. Are we living a surrendered life? Or are we stuck in our own emotions and stuck in our own will and stuck in our own strength? Or have we just given up because we said this thing didn't work? I don't think we've allowed this thing to work on the inside of us. So we're stuck. Let's talk about being surrendered. What does it mean to live a surrendered life? The first thing you must surrender, if you're taking notes today, we must surrender our past. We must surrender our past. Here's what I want to look at in the book of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 24. We're going to use this kind of our whole time together today. It says, then Jesus said to his disciples, his followers, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way. Everybody say give up. That's tough. We're going to talk about that at the end of our time together today. We must give up your own way. You got to surrender. You got to take up your cross. Notice he doesn't say his cross. Jesus already did that. You're not carrying your own salvation. Jesus already bought that. He doesn't say take up my cross. He says take up your cross. Take up your burden. Take up your purpose. Take up what I have given you to do on this earth. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And follow me. We're going to give up our own ways. We're going to take up our purpose, and we're going to follow. To get ready to run, we must surrender our past. You must give up your own way. How many people have been on a boat before? It's not everybody at Winter Springs. How many of you ever seen a boat before? Still not everybody. Come on, Oviedo, Sanford. How many of you ever heard of a boat? Okay. The rest of you just aren't raising your hand. That's cool. Whatever. I can see you, just so you know. Just want to remind you. If you're in this room, I can see you. And I'm getting reports from Pastor Kenneth and Pastor Tyler, who's not paying attention right now. Boats. Love boats. Love to go out on the boat. Love to inner tube behind the boat. Anybody wakeboard? Love boats. Boats go on water, correct? When a boat's engine stops, what does it do? It drifts. So what happens to a boat that you want to sit in a certain place? What do? You anchor it. You drop an anchor. You drop an anchor. So that way you're not gonna drift with the tides. You're not gonna drift with the current. You're gonna drop an anchor. And an anchor is healthy when you wanna stay in place. But what I want to talk to you about for just a moment is there's too many of us that have dropped an anchor at the wrong place. We've dropped anchors at things like relationships that have fallen apart. And we're not moving forward with our life because we've dropped anchor because somebody hurt us. Maybe we dropped anchor because we've lost something financially. We had a business idea that didn't work, and so we dropped an anchor at that pain, at that loss. Maybe you've gone through a tragedy that you need to hear that God did not send your way, that it happened because we live in a sinful world, but because of that loss and because of that tragedy, you've just dropped anchor. And here's what our life looks like if we don't surrender our past. We come to a church service like this. We attend an Action Church location. We spend time with God in our own personal devotion. And if we're not careful, we'll get inspired and we'll put that throttle down and we are ready to go. We are ready to have some fun. Let's go at top speed. The problem is we left our anchor planted at our last past hurt. Whether we did it or it happened to us, we have never pulled up the anchor. And so we've got all of the throttle and all of the effort and all of the wake and all of this work, but we're not running the race because we're stuck in our past. What it looks like is I have my Bible in one hand and I've got worship on my lips and I'm excited about all this stuff, but I just tag around this relational pain or this church hurt. Hey, everybody, a church has never hurt you before. People have. And they will continue to because we're fallen and we make mistakes. Don't put anchor down at your last church hurt. Don't put anchor down at your last relational breakup. Don't put your anchor down at anything that would separate you from your race. We've got to pull up our anchor and pursue the future that God has for us. Yes, counseling. Yes, prayer. Yes, healing. But we cannot put an anchor down where God tells us to move forward. Here's what I need you to get today. This is going to set some of you free. Your past is still your present until you present it to God. The past is still your normal. It's still your life. The past is still your present until you present it to God. Jesus Christ died for you. He surrendered his life so you could surrender your will to his will. Quit anchoring down at emotional hurt. Quit anchoring down at tragedy. Pull up that anchor. Let the past be the past. Present it to God and say, I'm moving forward into the future that you have for me. Amen. Don't get stuck off something somebody said or something somebody did. And I don't want to minimize it. There is so much pain in this room. I've been through pain. You've been through pain. I'm not minimizing your pain. I'm saying Jesus died for it. Present it at his feet. And then pick up your purpose and walk into the destiny that he has for your life. That's what Paul says in Philippians 3, verse 13. Forgetting the past, I press on to receive the prize. Let's press on. Let's surrender our past. The second thing I want you to write down if you're taking notes today, to run our race well, we need to surrender our past. We also need to surrender our process. What I want to talk about here is our thoughts. We need to surrender our thought process. We have some bad thinking. We have some thoughts in there that really just shouldn't be in there. The next phrase here is you must give up your own way and take up your cross. So we're going to give up our own way. We're going to give up our own agenda. We're going to surrender and we're going to take up God's thoughts. You know, his ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. We're going to change our thought process. You know, I did some research this week, and there's a secular study out of the Cleveland Clinic that says the average adult has 60,000 thoughts in a day. I tend to believe about 50,000 of those for men are about sex. Come on, that's funny. Come on, 9:15, love that. 9:15, you should have been here. If you would have been here, you would have laughed too. You missed it. Hopefully the other locations got it. Because if you're a married woman in here, you know, you're like, quit thinking about that. Is that all you think about? Yes. 60,000 thoughts are negative. Here's this, I want to be serious for a second. That was all in jest. That was all just a joke. 60,000 thoughts. 80% are negative. 80%. Some of you need to stop speaking to yourself because you're listening. And these thoughts are so overwhelming, and these thoughts are in our brain, and if we're not careful, our thoughts will lead to actions. We'll begin to do the wrong things because we're thinking the wrong things. My pastor, Chris Hodges, always says, don't be alone in your thoughts. Because I don't know about you, but I got some crazy things going through my brain. People hurt. People that have betrayed. What's the worst that could happen? Some negative thoughts, and we need to change our thinking. We need to surrender our thought process to God's thought process. Romans 12 says, do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Some of us need to renew our process today. We need to renew our thoughts. We did a lot of work in Sanford getting that building ready. It's was built in 1959. And so that thing has been painted and repainted and carpeted and recarpeted. If you've ever done any home remodel, you could just go in and repaint a wall. And for far too many of us, that's what we've done. Like we've come in, we want to change the color, we want to change our appearance, we want to change our marriage, we want to change our parenting, we want to change our lifestyle, maybe physically and our eating habits, but we don't want to actually change, we just want to paint over what's already been done. We don't fix any of the cracks, we don't fix any of the crevices, we don't smooth out any of the rough spots, we just paint on top of. And I'm here to tell you today, we don't need to just paint over, we need to renew. We are transformed by the renewing of our mind. We need to sand away some things, and we need to strip away some things, and we need to fix some things, patch some holes so that we allow God to begin to renew our mind. Thank you, Eddie. That was really good. I got one person in here who wants to renew their mind. Everybody else, just be in your stinking thinking. That's okay. Me and Eddie, we're going to renew our mind. Here's how. Surrender your thoughts. Surrender. Surrender them to God. Say, God, you have me. You have all of me. I'm surrendering my thoughts to you. And then surrender them to somebody else. Don't be alone in your thoughts. One of our overseers, my best friend, Josh Monty, surprised me this morning and came to our winter spring service at 9:15 and sitting at our 11:15 right now in Sanford. And that's just somebody that I can say, hey, I'm thinking about stupid. And he's not gonna judge me, he's not impressed with me, he's gonna say, well, good, get that thought out, we're not gonna act on it. Here are the 3 things that we're gonna do to protect you from that thought. It is not a sin to be tempted, it's a sin to act on it. And if we renew our thoughts and renew who gets into our thoughts, hey, watch what you're letting inside of you with what we're watching and listening to. Who are your friends? Are they pushing you to be more like Christ or asking you to be more like the world? And if it's the latter, they're not friends. It's actually called an attack, okay? If they don't care about your eternity, they don't actually care about you. Ooh, that was new. Write that down. Somebody write that down, tell me after. I'll forget it. Gotta renew our process. Here's the practical. This is so simple, but if you come here long enough, you're gonna realize that I'm not that brilliant. It's just real simple. I have some doubts. I doubt if things are gonna work. I doubt if we're gonna get there. Can I just tell you that we all have doubts? Here's what I want you to get. Start doubting your doubts. We're gonna have them. Just flip it. You know what, I have some doubts. I don't believe that. I'm gonna start doubting my doubts. I'm not gonna doubt the good things of God. I'm not gonna doubt scripture. I'm not gonna doubt the promises. I'm not gonna doubt the affirmation that I get from those who love me. I'm gonna doubt my doubts. I'm no longer gonna believe the worst about me. I'm no longer gonna believe the worst about people. I'm no longer gonna believe the worst that I think about God. I'm gonna start doubting my doubts and renew my mind and surrender my thoughts to God's thoughts. Surrender our past, surrender our process. Thirdly, we need to surrender our priorities. We're gonna give up ourselves, we're gonna take up our cross, and we're going to follow. We're gonna give up our priorities. We're gonna say, God, I no longer want to lead, I'm allowing you to lead. You know, I heard this story a couple years back. The Pope visited Washington, D.C. About 2 years ago, 18 months ago, right? And he was there, and he's really driven around. He has his handlers, and so when he was in America, you know, the land of the free, home of the brave, and he wants to drive his own car. For whatever reason, he picks a Fiat, kind of weird, little small compact car. You know, he's doing circles around the White House. He gets a little excited. Pope's got a lead foot, like some of you action people. I see you in the parking lot. You cut me off in traffic. Got cut off by an action sticker this week. Here's the new principle. Have 2 stickers on your car. When you're driving well, put an action sticker on it. When you're not, find a different church, put that sticker on it. That's not right. That offended somebody. Somebody at Sanford's offended right now. You can send your emails to kenneth.clark@theactionchurch.com. He'd love to talk about your offense. Pick up that anchor today and receive the freedom of Jesus Christ. It's full circle. Y'all aren't appreciating it today. I don't like it. I don't like it. 11:15, new service time, maybe some new people. You need to know we laugh, we have fun, we say amen. In Jesus' name, give me some feedback. I can see you, remember. Thank you, yes. Man. I got broke through the awkwardness. Thank you, sir, for giving me a transition. We got to surrender. We got to surrender our priorities. So the Pope is driving around. We're back to the Pope. He's driving around, lead foot, and he gets pulled over by the police. Everybody knows that feeling. You see the lights in the rear view. You're like, oh goodness. So he's nervous, even though he's the Pope, and he's been pulled over. And the police officer comes up to him and says, "Sir, Your Holiness." He freaks out. He just tells him, I'll be right back. He calls his superior officer and says, "Sir, I've pulled over somebody really important. I don't know what to do." He said, "Well, who'd you pull over? A member of the Senate, the House of Representatives?" "No, way more important than that." The officer's kind of frustrated, like, who's more important than that? Did you pull over the president?" "You pulled over the president." "No, sir, I did not pull over the president. Way more important than that." "Who is more important than the president?" He's frustrated at this point. Who in the world is more important than the president of the United States? He said, "Sir, I'm not real sure, but I'm pretty sure I pulled over Jesus because the Pope is his chauffeur." You're welcome. Here's the point. Too many of us are driving around Jesus. We include him in our life. He may be in the passenger seat. He may be in the back seat. Jesus doesn't ride in the back seat. Jesus Christ died for you and for me. He's either Lord of all or not Lord at all. You're kidding yourself if you think that you can lead and he's gonna follow. No, come and follow me. Lay down your own selfish desires. Pick up your cross and follow me. We've got to surrender our priorities and say, God, have your way in every part of my life. With my time, I'm gonna give you my time. He has to be first. The brilliant, wise prophet, Ricky Bobby, if he ain't first, he's last. And he wants to be first in your life. Does he get the best part of your time? Does he get the best part of you, or does he get the leftovers? You wake up in the morning, you're a morning person, God help you, don't call me. But if that's your best time, spend it with God. If you're more of a night person, you stay up late, you're more attentive at night, spend time with God at night. Maybe it's on your lunch break. You have a productive hour where you just feel energized. Spend your best time with God. You will never regret giving God your best. Never. Is he getting your time? Is he getting your talent? Do you work for you or do you work for God? Do we serve God? Do we have a job that we go to, or do we have people? Get this, and I say this to my staff all the time. I can't believe that I get paid on earth and in heaven. But can I just tell you that just because you don't get paid from a church, you get paid on earth and you get paid in heaven. Everybody's job is to reach people. So every time, I don't care what you do, what your workplace is, where your classroom is, your purpose there is to point people to Jesus Christ. You say, I'm not fulfilled in my job. Are there not people there? Because last time I checked, Christ died for them. Are you using your time and your gifts in the sphere of influence that you have to impact people? Are we surrendered? Lastly, have we surrendered our treasure? Have we trusted God with the most practical thing in our finances? And we say at Action Church, we are generous. And you are a generous church. But can I just invite more of you to be generous? What am I talking about? I'm not talking about tithing. Because tithing is not generosity. The tithe is a return. We return to God what's his. The tithe is simply saying, God, I trust you more than I trust myself. I'm returning to you 10%. And that's to your local church. If that's here, it should be here. If you don't trust us or don't like us, then find somewhere else and go plug in and give your time, your talent, your treasure. And then after we return to God what's to God, then we look to be generous to organizations and servers and people in our life and backpack outreaches and everything that we do as a church. That's after we give to God what is God's. Here's what I want you to write down. God can't bless what you still possess. God can't bless what you hold on to. He can bless what you give him access to. Say, I don't have enough time. I'm stressed out, Pastor. I don't know what to do with my time. Does God have your time? He can bless it. I'm not fulfilled in my career. What is my calling? Does God have access to your calling? If he said go, would you? He can bless it if you give it to him. With your finances, you say, I don't get this whole thing. I dare you to trust God with your finances and see what he does. This isn't a church thing. This isn't a need thing. This is a you and God thing, and you need God to have your time, your talent, and your treasure. You need your priorities to be surrendered to him. If you possess it, he can't bless it. Release it to him. We have a problem with this word surrender. We'll close with this thought. The word surrender in our American vocabulary is tough, right? Because we don't lose. Back-to-back World War champs, right? Man, I am spitting gold today. This is crazy. Who are you people? Are you lost? This is Action Church. We make it hard for people to go to hell by making it fun to go to church, and I'm not having very much fun right now. Yeah. I love you too. I still love you. Still my birthday. You should at least give me a pity laugh on my birthday. I mean, come on. Worked all week, got all dressed up for you, just staring at me like I'm in a glass box. Look at this guy. Where's the popcorn? We have this problem with surrender because we win, right? We don't surrender. We don't negotiate. We're Americans. Because the truth is, in any surrender, if you wave the white flag, if you're in an MMA match and you tap out, when you surrender, somebody loses. So we have this problem when we say confess Jesus with our mouth and believe in our heart that he is Lord, and we give him authority over our life and we surrender because we are under the idea that we're gonna lose something. And can I just tell you today, when you surrender to Jesus Christ, somebody does lose. But it's not you, it's not me, it's definitely not God, it's our enemy. It's Satan, that the plan he has for your life loses when you surrender to God. See, he thought he won the first time. When he put Jesus on the cross and into the grave, he thought, man, I finally win. It's my time to shine. It's my time to reign. But Jesus led by example that when he surrendered his life, God lifted him up. It's the same thing with you and the same thing with me. If we will surrender our marriage and we will surrender our finances and we will surrender our past and surrender our thought process and surrender our priorities, God will begin to lift us up in Jesus' name. When you surrender, you win. You win. And I know it's been encouraging and positive, but I gotta end with some bad news and some great news. This gospel that we preach at Action Church, this gospel that is written, it is completely exclusive with how you receive a relationship with God. Completely exclusive. There's no both and. It's either or. It's completely exclusive. But the good news of the gospel is it's radically inclusive to who can receive it. Exclusive with how, inclusive with who, that whosoever would believe in their heart would not perish but have everlasting life. It is either or. I want to read this to you real quick as we close. We're closing. Keys are playing, we're closing. Here's the either or. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. Verse 25 of the same passage. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? I believe as Jim Ellis says, it's no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he could never lose. Here's the either or. You can deny yourself or you can live for yourself. You can take up your cross or you could ignore the cross. You could follow Christ, or you could follow the world. You could lose your life for his sake, or you could save your life for your own sake. You could forsake the world, or you could gain the world. You could keep your soul, you could lose your soul. You could spend eternity with God, or you could spend eternity separate from him. It's one decision. Are we gonna be stuck, or are we gonna be surrendered to Jesus Christ? Would you bow your heads at all locations today? Every head bowed here at Winter Springs, at Oviedo, at Sanford. Nobody's looking around. Just a moment with you and God. My prayer all week is that people would get unstuck today. Poor thinking, checkered past, moments that you've walked away, that today you would start running. You'd be on your mark. We're gonna get you ready, and you're gonna run the race God has for you. It starts with surrender. Maybe it's for the very first time. If you've never made that decision and you say, I want to accept Jesus, the perfect sacrifice. He lived perfect for 33 years, died a sinner's death in our place, rose again to give us victory over sin and victory over death. And you want to receive the gift of salvation that is Jesus Christ today. Or maybe you're in here today and you've walked an aisle, prayed a prayer, checked the box. You're just like me at 19 years old. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Because I'd never surrendered. I wanted to drive. So if you're in today for the first time ever, or maybe you're in here today and Jesus has been in the passenger seat. You've been driving him around in the back seat, and today you give him control of your life. Today you follow him by surrendering your life. So for the first time, or maybe for the first time in a long time, by recommitting your life, would you slip your hand up so I could pray for you? Come on, raise them high. Winter Springs, Oviedo, Sanford. High so we can see them. Location pastors taking their platform right now. Just us in here, man. I got hands all over. 15, 20 hands. On the left, got you, sir. Got you, ma'am. Right here in the front. Got you in the middle. A couple in the back right here. Anybody else before we pray? Say, I can count, man. Got you right there, ma'am. So proud of you. Got you in the back. Surrendering your life to Jesus Christ. It all changes. It's a moment. It will turn into a decision of you becoming a disciple, learning to follow and run your race well. Gotcha. You put your hands down. So proud of you. Pray this in your heart. As I pray this out loud, just say something like this. Say, God, I love you. And God, I thank you for saving me. I acknowledge that I'm a sinner, saved only by your grace. And I confess with my mouth, and I believe in my heart that you are the Lord. And I'm giving you that place today. Complete and total control. God, have your way. Thank you for saving me. Now, God, I pray for all of us. God, I pray that we would surrender our past. God, we'd surrender our thoughts. We're going to be renewed this week. And we'd surrender our priorities to you. We're going to put you first. God, I pray that you give us practical ways this week, practical examples to live out what we've learned today. We love you. We thank you for meeting us here. It's in your name we pray. And everybody said, amen. Church, can we celebrate 15, 16 hands? I mean, amazing moment. Come on, really celebrate them. So grateful.